Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. And I know what you're going to say, everyone. You're like, all right, Andy's going to say something cynical, and then he's going to read the bio of today's guest, and then we'll get into the interview. No more cynicism. I have taken a very positive view of everything that's going on in the world. Okay? Whether it's tech companies building giant server farms that destroy the earth and worsen the health of everyone that lives nearby, whether it is the United States government allowing predatory private equity, which no longer is getting any real returns and can no longer pay their investors. They're being allowed access to people's 401ks, whether it's something else, whether it's any of the many unspeakable things that I don't even want to mention in the midst of a joke. No matter what, I'm taking a positive look. And that look is that I think all the people I hate will be harmed as well. So that's the positive part of this, is that my enemies will probably be harmed from all the evil they're doing. And that's the little nugget that I'm holding on to in my heart. Also, what I'm holding on to, how great today's episode is, because today I'm talking to Carson McHone, and if you don't know who Carson is, I'm going to read you her bio right now. Originally from Austin, Texas, musician Carson McHone has been playing music live since she was a teenager. Her first EP came out in 2013 and brought her immediate attention. Over the next 5 years, Carson built a reputation for herself in the country scene, and her second album, Carousel, was named by Rolling Stone as one of the 40 best country and Americana albums of 2018. 2022 Still Life, released on Merge, saw an evolution of Carson's style, which continues into her latest album, Pentimento, which will be out September 12th, also on Merge. And folks, it's wonderful. I first wrote Carson back when Still Life came out. I think it's a wonderful album. It has been on my phone pretty much continuously since it came out. And I'm telling you this, folks, I usually cycle through albums. I'll have one on my phone, listen to it for a while, then it gets deleted from the phone. Because that's where I'm listening to music. I'm out and about. I'm doing chores, walking Mabel, driving Naomi to work. But Carson's music, those babies stay on there for years. So I wrote Carson. And we actually talked back then. We recorded an episode, and afterwards Carson was like, we got pretty into it. We got kind of deep in a way that maybe Carson wasn't comfortable with yet. So she asked if we could re-record it. And now that her new album's coming out, she's like, let's do it. This is wonderful. Talk about Austin. We talk about her living in Canada now. I'm envious. I guess. Canada's not that great. It's better than the U.S., but this was a delight. Carson is a thoughtful person, so of course, the perfect guest for Beginnings. I hope you like this. And folks, I don't mean to... This is an accident that I have so many guests who have released records or who have founded Merge lately on the show, but basically August is Merge month. I gotta say, it's one of my favorite labels, so I'm not embarrassed about having so many folks coming up on the show. Laura Balance, co-founder of Merge, bass player in one of my favorite bands, Superchunk. That was delightful. Dan Riggins from Friendship, also coming up. And not a Merge person, just talked to Peter Salette, folk singer, also part of the comedy community, wrote the music for Wet Hot American Summer, is in a lot of Stella and the State stuff. That was fun. So look forward to those. But for now, let's talk to Carson. Are there things that are tedious, but you will sit there and work and just do it, even though it takes an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever, for the art, for the final, whatever that thing is? I don't know what in your case, but are you willing to do it? And then what is it in you? Like, I think there's a defiance in me where I'm just like, oh, I'm going to do, oh, world, do you think you're going to stop me with this latency from having a good product in quotes, from having something that I think is worthwhile? Well, fuck you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's sort of like very much a part of how I function, or how my partner Daniel functions, like doing so much analog, I guess. Like, even like I was sitting there watching Daniel stipple something the other day. It was like, he does lots of lots of design work, but it was just like, it just looks so much better when you can actually see every single tip of the pen mark. Anyways, yeah, so things like that, for sure. I feel like I'm trying to think of something that I do that's like that. Surely many things. And I bet it drives most people crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like even building like drums on because I don't have a drum set, and also I'm very shitty at drumming. So even if I had a drum set, it would be the most rudimentary, like dink, 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 dink. So I will get drum samples and then build something on GarageBand or whatever. And it is tedious. It is to have to like sit there and be like, all right, I'll put this here and I'll put this here. And then I got to figure this out. It is, I don't not feel the tedium. Does that make sense? Like, it's not like I'm so passionate about a project, or like I was just writing a pitch doc for something my wife and I are doing, and writing a pitch. I don't know if you ever had to write one. They are so tedious because it's all the most unfun stuff about writing a project, right? Because it's like, well, you have to figure out all the like mechanics of it and then just write the mechanics in an entertaining way. As opposed to,
I did some grant writing earlier this year, and I had never done that before. And that was like, I'm not good at that stuff. It's really hard and it makes me like, I want to cry because I'm like, it's just, you are sort of putting the horse before the cart, and that there's that's sort of a part of it, is that you're accounting for all of these things in advance, but like the project itself, like the grant is for the project, but the project can't be fully realized, but it actually does need to be fully realized. And so things like that, which you'd think, I guess as like sort of running like a business ourselves, like as artists, is like, accounting for things on tour is sort of, you'd think it would be easy at this point, but I think, it's not still. it's still painful and tedious. But it's a part of it's a part of the job. And it's one of those things like, I was actually on some of these grants, I was working with a friend of mine who I think is much more adept at these things, but he was like, I feel really strongly about you doing it. Like, I'm happy to work with you, but I think it's like, I would rather teach a man to fish, sort of thing. So that you can do it, and you will have done it, and it will be sort of, from you. And I think that's good, but yeah, it's definitely, it is tedious.
Are you comfortable with the, you mentioned just before how, we are running businesses technically. I mean, literally my wife is a S Corp, but like, are you comfortable with the business aspects of this? You're a little younger than me, but when I was a teenager, the idea of like the business side of this, or like selling out, or any of that kind of stuff, was so distasteful that
it's the worst thing. Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, I think that's sort of that's the hardest part of doing this right now, I guess, is just that, it's a very fine balance, this being able to sustain yourself and your livelihood so that you can engage with the artistic process and these sort of things that we hold sacred in the world, and you know and still be able to support yourself and do that. I mean, it would be great to just be able to move through the world and not have to weigh those things constantly. Also, that is a part of the work too, though. So it's just like a part of the job, and I mean job not just like in the economic sense of things, but like it's a part of the work is to be able to balance things that are grossly out of balance, and call attention to those things, with our art in a way, in whatever way that manifests, but also to literally be doing that too in your day to day. But yeah, it's not my favorite part, and it's a very complicated thing to try to engage with those things that are, sacred and powerful, and not have them sullied by
Yeah, I don't.
how you're moving through the world. I mean, I think especially right now, the moment feels potent for that. It's like we're I think all of us collectively are becoming, it's much more apparent, all of the ways that we are involved and intertwined with, this colonial apparatus. And that's complicated to reckon with. And then you have to, instead of just being totally devastated by it, act. And in that action, know that with one foot, you're trampling on something, and with the other foot, you're trying to like make way for a new way, if you can.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I think that balance is difficult to keep,
Yeah.
or maintain, or I don't know that one ever finds it. It's just that's what you strive for, I guess.
Well, what powers you through? Because we've talked about the tedium, we've talked about the business stuff that neither of us want to handle, that we just would like to spend our time creating or being in a creative mood. But, you have to email people. You got to figure out the merchandise. You have to figure out, all the stuff. You have to design the t-shirt. You have to do X, Y, and Z, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the emotion, or what is the, again, like me, part of it was defiance. Is this kind of just like, oh, you think you're going to stop me, world? Again, it's defiance to no actual human being. I mean, you instantiated, you like pick a human and you're like, all right, now I'm going to resent you, person, X person in front of me, Y person in front of me. You get the resentment. But it's really about the way, I think at the core for me, it's a kind of anger and resentment that this is the way the world is, and I have to live in a world that is this shitty.
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever keeps you going. I mean, I think
that's a very polite way of. I would almost believe you're Canadian and not from Texas.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I think too, at different parts of our lives, those things will probably, or may or may not shift, like where the fuel for our drive comes from. Because there can be, like this beautiful, healthy, competitive nature to things. I feel like, I don't know, as I've gotten older, I feel like I've gotten much more sensitive, and I think that's the right word. I'm not quite sure, but and so I think I'm much quicker to sort of feel sad or
Sure.
devastated or defeated. And in the same breath, I think as I'm getting older, I'm, you know, learning about myself and the world and like gaining knowledge as well. And so in the same way, I think I have this regalvanized kind of hope. And so I wouldn't say that it's like the rage or the competition or the anger that is fueling me these days. Although I think that's totally valid and important.
You don't have to
And,
validate me. It's
and
so
I won't say that I don't feel those things because I do. I just think that I tend to find like the connection and the community to be the thing that's like driving me these days. I've I mean, I will say that growing up, I've had so many wonderful, beautiful friends and um, I'll call them bandmates, but I over the years like touring in and out of Austin. But I never actually was a part of like a group. I never had a band. There were people I loved playing with who I, tried to create a good environment with and keep around. And everybody, plays in a million other bands too. So it was like I had a favorite group of people at this time or that time to play with, but it was never like we weren't writing the songs together. It was very much like it was my thing, and I would, I would lead it in that way. Just so much to say that like since joining my partner Daniel's band, The Outfit, it's like that sense of a group, like that it's a band, more of a band dynamic, has been pretty profound to me, like, or made a profound impact on me. And that like you are sort of a part of something greater than yourself, which of course we always are, but it's like a very visceral manifestation of that, I guess. And so
yeah.
you're embodying this different role, and it's really freeing in that way too, in a way that maybe you wouldn't expect it to, because like, I mean, with your solo project, you can say and write whatever you want, but it's like, it's not that way to me. It's like freeing in
Mm-hmm.
this beautiful supportive role way that you can sort of take pride in it in a way that it's more of an uncomfortable thing with a solo project. So I think being introduced to that formation of like being a part of a band has really, I don't know, turned me on to this beautiful sort of collaborative approach to, well, life in general, I guess, but making art and playing music. And so I think it was a catalyst for making my next like solo record with this sort of collaborative group of people. And now that record itself has branched out into all these different sort of multi-art projects.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think really that's blossomed because of just being in a part of a band for the first time in my life. And now
Yeah.
I'm finding it necessary, feeling like this moment for me especially, but maybe the world in general, like there are all these multifaceted questions that are being raised, problems that we're facing, and I think they need multifaceted answers, and so it's like having people bring their different expertise, or energy or whatever that, if this person's coming with rage and this person's coming with hope, and like those, we need both. We need all of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I tend to think about human relationships in terms of either friends, enemies, love, those kinds of emotions. And it's really, as I've started to, in the last like 6-7 years, work more, like do stuff with DSA or the Writers Guild or things like that, I started to expand my thought about like, oh, there's also something called solidarity, in which I am in league with these people in a very deep way, but we're not friends necessarily. Like, I like a lot of the people that I do stuff with in DSA or the Writers Guild. I like them, but like, we're not friends. We're here for a specific purpose. And you saying that in this kind of like the idea of like making music, I never thought of that as a different kind of thing outside of friendship, because I've always done creative projects with friends or loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
And you say that, I was like, oh, right. There's also beyond like friendship or love or solidarity. There's also a creative connection with people where maybe you're not necessarily friends with them, or maybe it's not. It's like maybe it's a form of solidarity in some way, like creative solidarity. But I think that's an interesting motivator, right, to have, because you have this. I mean, I'll ask you if this is the same as it is for me, but like when I'm in that kind of context with other people, it feels like we're creating this field almost, like, I mean, like in terms of science, like an electric field or some kind of field, some kind of like, and he used before, I forget the word, sacred maybe. And it makes me think of like magic. And I say that it seems kind of corny when I say it, but it does feel this kind of like different feeling where things become possible that weren't possible, creative things.
I think that like whether or not you have like a linguistic or like really personal relationship with somebody, you can connect with them, and that connection sort of transcends those things, you know? So like this transcendence maybe is like when you're talking about magic or even like the field of energy or like science, you know, it's like, I mean, I think that this is what is so crucial in these moments. I think is like people who are, I mean, we have people who cannot see each other right now, you know, like as like they cannot relate to each other, and people are being ugly to each other. And it's like, how do we transcend what these like the things that we carry, right, that sort of define us as these human people, and how do we like make the similarities of those, like the humanness of us that's not just our personal baggage or whatever, how do we meet and transcend those things that actually like we are able to connect? And it doesn't mean that we're like, oh my God, we're best friends now and we're going to call each other like every day and talk about, you know, whatever.
Sit in our beds, holding the phone, curling.
Yeah, I don't
curling our hair and curling your finger around the cord.
Yeah, and I mean, even like with friendships, it's like, and I don't mean to just say like people who are at odds with each other, but even like friendships, like I feel like I have many acquaintances. I don't have a ton of friends. And then I have like a smaller group of people who I consider like really dear friends, but I have completely different those relationships look very different. You know, even it was funny because I was talking to two of my oldest friends, and the three of us all know each other and kind of grew up together, but we became really close at different points in our lives. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a friend of mine in particular, Layla, we were having this conversation the other day that we realized like, yeah, we don't really talk about that stuff, do we? Like we were talking, I can't remember what the context was, but it was like, yeah, like Lauren and I call each other, we've called each other in crisis. And like, we've, you know, like we've talked each other out of like panic attacks, and that we're like, you know, along with, of course, being just like buds and longtime friends. And then like Layla and I were talking, and I feel like so close to both of them in similar ways, but also in very different ways. And Layla and I were like talking about how interesting, we haven't ever really done this before. Like we don't do this often, do we? You know? And I think that's just, I don't know, that's just where that relationship is, or how that relationship has formed. And I mean, I have different looking friendships with different friends, and not to say that, and I don't even think I could necessarily define them. That was just a really easy thing. Like we talk about these things together more often than we do like this stuff. But yeah. And then like the folks that I made this record with, I feel like in those 6 days that we holed up in this house, it was like so intimate. But then like, I don't chat every day with Coco or with Michael.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Or even like folks in Austin. Like, I mean, I'm from Texas, and I've moved up here, and there are people that I feel like I can have gone months without speaking to, that I can pick up right where I left off. And it's funny how sometimes, you know, like you can almost live next door to somebody and never interact with them. And then like a friend of mine who moved overseas, I feel like we became so much closer when they moved. And it's funny how that happens. But yeah, that all kinds of friendships and love and stuff can have completely different characteristics, you know?
Yeah. Wait, are you an only child?
I'm not. I have a younger brother.
You do. What's your relationship with your younger brother? Because the way you were talking before, I don't know. It was yelling only child at me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Gosh. I feel like sometimes that can be an insult, but I don't know. I won't take it as one.
No, it's not an insult. It was not.
I was like, oh, what have I said? Yeah, I mean, right now I'm waiting for a text back from him.
Okay. So it's a close relationship.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I feel like Fletcher and I, it's funny. In the ways that I was just sort of talking about Layla, like I feel like Fletcher and I, that's my brother Fletcher. He and I feel like can often be there for each other in crisis. In this, like, I feel like he knows exactly what to say to me, and he always has really great advice. But then we're not great at keeping up with each other. Like, what's your life looking like these days? Who are your friends and what's going on? But it's like in these crisis moments we are, you know, which I would like for that to change, and we'll see if we can. I mean, I don't know. That distance is difficult, I guess, you know, so it can be, but like, yeah, I don't want us to only be there for each other in crisis. I'd like to like become buds. And I think that can often happen with siblings as they get older. And if it hasn't happened before, because we were never like super, super close, although we, you know, grew up together, which is kind of a wild thing that can happen. But yeah, so I guess I'll say that I look forward to getting to know Fletcher. And I hope he feels the same way, and we'll see.
What's the age difference?
5.5 years.
Oh, well, that's huge. Well, no wonder, you know, my sister is 3.5 years younger than me. And that was already we're talking about the difference between high school and junior high. You're completely different. 5.5 years is totally different worlds. Although maybe it's young enough that you don't feel like they're, I don't know, maybe the too close proximity with my sister and I was what led to a lot of friction. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder, because I feel like I don't feel like Fletcher and I have had tons of friction over the years. I hope he doesn't mind that I'm just sort of like putting him on blast.
Hey, you're the public persona. You get to define. This is the curse of us being public people, is that we get to define our families in a way, and they just have to live with it.
Maybe he'll call in the middle of the interview, and we can get his opinion on the whole thing. But no, I feel like that probably has a lot to do with it. That like because we're just kind of far enough in age apart that we didn't grow up as like tight, close buds. But because of that, there wasn't a ton of friction because we weren't butting heads all the time. And so now it'll be like more of a process of kind of like getting to know each other as adults.
Yeah. I mean,
if we want to call ourselves that.
Did you grow up in Austin? Mm-hmm. So you're born in Austin, grew up in Austin.
It'll be 5 years now that I've been up here in September. But before that, I went away to school in Arkansas for a semester and a half of college, but it was very brief. So otherwise, I've only ever lived in Austin. When I was about 2021, I started going on the road, and that became like more and more of what I did. At first, it was like sort of just quick jaunts, and then it became longer periods of time. For the past like 10 years or so. But so that's been my home base.
Is making music almost a fait accompli? Like you grow up with, I guess, South by Southwest there every year, right? Is that, and like, it seems like in the same way that maybe if you grow up in Los Angeles, the idea of being in entertainment is pretty obvious.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I came to music in a little bit more of a roundabout way, just in that, like, I think I picked up instruments because I wanted to, like, I was more writing things down on a page. And so it was like a means to an end, sort of. I read a lot. My mom read and wrote, and we had lots of books. And my parents, I grew up with parents who loved music, but they didn't play. And so, like, I took violin lessons as a kid, Suzuki violin lessons from like a very young age. And that was all sort of mostly ear training, like learning by ear. And I didn't really have, I guess at one point I could read music, but the sort of classical music theory stuff, that was never a part of my learning, really. And I really struggled with the violin until I met this woman, Darcy DeVille, who ended up, like, I was super into stuff that was much more sort of like country or bluegrass or folksy. And she was just a multi-instrumentalist, actually Canadian, but met her in Austin. And so she ended up becoming my fiddle teacher, and she would just teach me fiddle tunes, and that I would just learn by ear and repetition and stuff. And then my uncle gave me a mandolin, and that's when I sort of started backing myself up with things that I'd written. And Darcy also played guitar, so then it was kind of, I learned how to make basic chords, and then it was from there I just sort of started doing my own thing. But it was always kind of just to facilitate song.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't taking tons of lessons, and I didn't have theory at my fingertips. And my family didn't either, but there was definitely just a love and appreciation for it. And yeah, living in Austin, which is a relatively like age friendly, like kid friendly town. Maybe less so these days, I don't know. But like my folks would take me out to see music. And there are just tons of venues. And so it was really, I think it's a really special thing that I was able to go out and be around music and stuff at a young age. And so, yeah, I guess around the time I was like a teenager in high school, I was going out to bars and playing like happy hours and things like that. And, getting introduced to the bar scene at a relatively young age, which I think now I'm very grateful for, because I feel like I got a lot of mistakes out of the way, maybe a little bit younger than some. But
yeah, it's like someone who starts stand up when they're a teenager, and then,
oh my gosh,
by the time they're in their 20s.
I can't even imagine. That seems like so brave. I can't even imagine it, really. I really can't.
Wait, why is it brave? Just because they're up there on their own without...
it seems so... It's really funny. So I mentioned this sort of collaborative web stuff that's happened since making this record. And it's just, I think, the nature of things for me these days, which is awesome. And I have somehow these beautiful, beautiful people that are wanting to be involved with things, which I'm so grateful for. But I'm working on this performance project specific to the record, and one of my co-directors, Deanna, is a theater producer and actor and director and comedian, and she does improv with like an improv partner. And they had me out the other night to do this thing that was so fun and bizarre and like weirdly scary. That was an improv show, but it was sort of I was their musical guest, and I just brought a guitar and
Played a song,
they started the
and
show.
then they did scenes off of it.
Kind of, yeah. It was like, they weren't trying to interpret the tune or anything, but it was just, they introduced me, I played a song, and then the three of us sort of chatted for maybe 5 minutes about, usually we would start around the song and then it would go anywhere. And then they were like, thank you so much. You can have a seat. And then scene, like they would go into something. And I did that like twice. And I want to say it was about like 20 minutes of improv it was really cool and funny. And yeah, it was a hilarious thing. Yeah. And totally just exposing in this really beautiful way, because of course it's like funny and I'm bringing to the table some sort of like not so hilarious, at least seemingly. Turns out it was all hilarious, but you know what I mean? Like it was really fun.
But Carson, this is what I'm picking up on. This is why I said earlier that I felt like you had only child vibes, where it feels like you are a very introspective person and that you live a lot of your life in your head, but that is just an impression. I'm curious, is that accurate or not?
I would say it's definitely accurate. I think I'm working to sort of make my way out of there.
What is there something that's prompting you to do that, or is it just the act of getting older where you're like, I feel like I need to kind of connect more with other human beings?
I mean, I'm not sure if I could put my finger on it exactly. Certainly something along those lines, but I think really like just being present. I mean, I think I have a tendency to totally overthink things. I mean, I'm a very like, what is the terminology even? I'm grasping for something here, but like I can be really analytical, and I think that there's some really great things that can come from that. I consider things and I want, but also that can really get in your way. And I recognize that. And I think I'm now sort of just trying to actively put into practice being present and letting things, sort of not trying to like micromanage, and I think that there's so much of, I don't know, I mean, certainly things come from our childhood, but like, feeling like, I think I had a sense of needing to like, if something's wrong, I need to address it right away, because like not addressing something will just lead to blah, blah, blah. And now I'm finding the balance of like, is this something taking a beat? And it's like, and in fact, Fletcher, my brother, is somebody who's really, I think, taught me a lot about this. And it's like, okay, here's this issue or this road bump or something. It's like, is this something that needs to be addressed really seriously right now? Or can I sort of, acknowledge this for myself, and then I can breathe and I can move through this moment and get to the other side of this moment. And then maybe I have a different perspective, like those sorts of things. And I think my tendency to stay with those moments, there's some negative stuff there that's probably like whatever, trauma related. And then I think likely there's this, this tendency to want to be able to articulate exactly what it is, because that's kind of the nature of what I've done with art, And I remember when the first time I ever, I went to therapy in Austin, and I remember sort of listening to this therapist talk, and I was like, yeah, this is all really interesting. I was like, yeah, letting things go, and I was like, I feel like the point of my job is like the opposite of this. Like my life's work is the opposite. It's to like embody and like exactly articulate what this thing is. And the thing is it's both. And it's like, especially on stage and being present in those things, but you're not reliving that. You're not actually still in danger. You're okay, or whatever. And it's just this beautiful balance of learning that. And it's a physical thing too, and you have to like practice it. And I don't mean to like be telling. I'm speaking just from like, I'm like, wow, realizing it. You know what I mean?
No, this is 100% relatable. I remember seeing Hannah Gadsby do Nanette before it was like a thing. She was just doing it as like a theater show, right? Before it became like this big phenomenon. And someone I knew went backstage to see her after it, and they had to wait because she gets like, it's a very emotional show. She talks about, being, homophobia in Australia and all this other kinds of thing, how it like really hurt her. And she was actually, when she does the show, she actually feels those feelings, and she had to sit and kind of like get out of it before she could go talk to people.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you're talking about the same thing. And I've had that too. If I like, there's something I'm doing, and it's usually music more than writing a script, but like where I'm embodying an emotion or a feeling or something, and it's something I have felt and processed already, but I then turned it into art. And in performing that art, I'm now feeling it again, but I'm also already processed it, but I'm also now feeling it again. And this weird kind of Schrodinger type situation where both things are happening at once. I think, is that kind of what you're talking about?
I think so too. And just sort of acknowledging, I mean, I keep going back to this idea these days of sort of these multiple truths being present all the time. And how do we reconcile that? But here we are. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's like kind of what we were talking about earlier. I'm feeling rage, and I'm going to stay with that. And I'm going to bring that to this situation here. And that could be exactly what the moment is calling for. Or you could be in a situation where you're feeling rage and it's like, perhaps this is not the moment to bring this to the table. Can I acknowledge this and also recognize that somebody could be feeling something completely different, or I need to show up with a different part of myself or whatever, this like, just that multiple things can be true at once, and that, you can be safe and on stage with your best friends and embody this thing that is incredibly viscerally terrible. or you can be having a really hard time and have profound moments of joy. It's like the world right now. There's just like terrible, terrible things happening. And yet there's also the most profound beauty. And how those things can be happening simultaneously is like pretty mysterious, but also worth acknowledging. But it's complicated. And I think that's why art.
Yeah. As an overthinker, see, this is, I think, what I was connecting with. I think the anxiety of being an overthinker is something that is deep in me. And I think that's what I was also reading in you. And I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this. I think, though, as an overthinker, as someone who is thinking about all of again, you're right, all the stuff happening at the same time that is somewhat contradictory, I'm uncomfortable in that. I desperately want a black and white world where it's very obvious what is right and what is wrong. And I wish then people would be like, we know who the evil people are and we're going to do something about this. Instead, it's deeply, deeply complicated on many different levels that exist all at once, and they all have their own kinds of complexity. Mm-hmm. And because I have anxiety from that, it makes it difficult to navigate in a... Maybe I'm just being... I'm maybe being a little too self-deprecating. It's not difficult to navigate. I don't enjoy navigating it. I can understand all these different levels. And I'm curious about you. How do you handle this stuff? Or is it just, you, like you just said, you're like, well, I kind of live and then I distill it into art in order to kind of deal with it?
I don't know if I can answer that question in a straightforward way, in a black and white way. No, but I feel like you're totally right. And yeah, it can be so overwhelming that it feels paralyzing and you're stuck. And then I think for me, I'm like, I gotta move. Okay. Not, I gotta like be in action now. I gotta be,
Uh-huh.
and so, yeah, I think it's about putting one foot in front of the other. And I think there's always been a part of me that knows that that's what you got to do. But I think too, being around Daniel has been helpful in that way. That I feel like, as somebody who is an overthinker and who I can get in my own way, I feel like Daniel's really good at sort of constantly being in motion and not letting something stop him from seeing a thing through, which is awesome. And two, we like recognizing that some of that comes from anxiety as well. And does he sometimes have a hard time being still or present in this moment? Like those, it's all the things. But it's a really, really lovely thing to feel like. I do feel like since I've come up here, it's become a part of my practice to just stay in motion more, where I would otherwise sometimes feel overwhelmed to a point of slowing to a stop sometimes, or not seeing something through. It's like, okay, this is not working. Shift. Like, let's try. I got to do something. What are we going to do? And, or like, I want to do this thing. I'm not sure how. And then by the end of the day, we've made a music video. And it's like, holy cow, how did that happen? And it's just like, I don't know. Go.
Yeah.
And it feels like, but it also takes, and then I recognize that like sometimes I don't even notice that that's the way that we're working. And then I'll talk to somebody who's not around us all the time, and they're like, oh my God, that's weird. Like, and I don't write I have a very, very different style of creating than Daniel. And I'm much slower, and I think methodical. Of course, I like to overthink things. And I think there's a beauty to that. I mean, we have completely different styles. But it's so nice to know that I can kind of exercise that style as well sometimes,
Yeah.
It just makes me believe in things, which is awesome. And I think too, I see it in him, I see it in friends of ours. And then like, if a friend of mine is struggling, or a family member or something, it's just like, we can do it.
Yeah.
Like we can.
Yeah.
What do we got to do?
Were you always a precocious kid? Because I'm curious about, you said you were playing in bars as a teenager, and I'm wondering, is that are you able to navigate that in a way where, because you're around adults then, and it seems a little kind of, could be a little dicey, let's say, or do you walk into that kind of naive? I'm curious.
I think a little bit of both. I think that the bar scene is complicated for everybody. And yeah, being a young person in that scene, I think that alcohol played a big role in my time growing up. And two, I'm not sure. I'm still kind of navigating where sometimes I have pretty severe stage anxiety, like stage fright.
Really?
And I don't remember having that as like a young person. And maybe that has to do with being naive, and then that you grow and you learn more, and then you have these anxieties that manifest. But I'm sure that, coupled with alcohol as well, or, drugs, it's like those things are blurry and sort of hard to pin down, but I think like I think I maybe felt, I don't know if I ever felt comfortable. Maybe I did. I have definitely found myself now being out and about. And I've had a sort of a complicated relationship with Austin, and I think a lot of people do with their hometowns. And I feel like I've spoken to this before, but that like I think when I left to move here, it was really great for me to be away. And then I think like going back was kind of hard for a while. And this most recent time that I went back to Austin, January, February of this past year, um, I felt so good being there. Like the things that troubled me or made me angry or that felt threatening before didn't feel that way. I felt like I'm safe. I'm okay. Like this, yes, I don't like this, or yes, this bothered me, or whatever. But I was able to really, I think I'm learning how to not let those things go in the way that like it's not important to me to, you know, like I still think this is wrong, or I still think that about that situation, but that I'm not in that moment anymore. I've moved through it, and I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then so now I've been able to come back and like embrace the things that really are so beautiful about the community there. Whereas I think I would have still been bitter and resentful had I not sort of taken some time away. And so it's been really beautiful to sort of come around to Austin again, which is really nice. And I think it just has to do with like, hopefully I'm maturing and just time and, you know, but yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think I definitely made many mistakes, and I don't know. I think I had an attitude and a confidence as a a younger person, when I was like a young teenager going into these spaces, and very naive, you know, and then having experiences that were like really not appropriate. But you know, what does that mean? I don't know. There were like, you know, some instances of violence and abuse that were like really terrible, but I was okay. I mean, it was the situation was not okay, but like I grew from those things. I wish it were a different way, but you know, yeah, it's complicated. But this is, I'm here, and I'm changed because of it.
Hmm.
And for so many beautiful things too, you know, that I could go on and on about. And
Yeah.
now I feel like I can, you know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
is really nice.
When you said you did therapy, are we talking about like just talk therapy? Did you do EMDR type stuff? Because it seems like you know, you don't have to get specific, but like it seems like, you know, some of the stuff you're talking about or alluding to is stuff you kind of might want to.
No, I did. I've only ever done talk therapy. Although I feel like, I mentioned Deanna, the other co-director is this person, Allie, and Allie is a death doula and a dancer. And Al teaches a lot of movement workshops. And I mean, Allie and Deanna and I have been meeting almost every week for a while now to work on this project of, like, I say mine. It's so now our project, but it's from this record that I made. And when I say I made it, it was with this incredible group of people. But so they've been coming and working with me, working with these songs of mine. And I, like I said, I did this sort of separate thing with Deanna, with her improv show. And I recently went to a workshop of Allie's called Grief and Motion. And it was really amazing. And I consider it a form of therapy. And it was with a group of people, just strangers. But yeah, we went through different movements, and some of it was sort of a guided meditation kind of thing. And then some of it was just sort of, Al kind of talked us through something and would just then sort of let us go. Um, and it was fascinating because I think that talk therapy is great, but I think that there are first of all, so many people that it's not great for because that's not their strong suit, is like penning something down with words and trying to articulate exactly this or that. I also think so many things that people experience cannot be articulated with words. And that's why, again, music or art or movement, and what Al does is both, all of those things. It's so very musical, and it's so creative and artistic, and also physical, so it's like, I think there are some things and some people, just scenarios where you're not going to be able to articulate things with spoken language or even written language. And that's why something like, a movement workshop or, and I know you were kind of speaking to specific different kinds of therapy, and I have not done those, but I definitely consider the workshop that I did with Al to be a form of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's one that I think you're less likely to get in your own way with, because I think sometimes, especially for somebody who like us maybe can think yourself into a spiral. It's so nice to be able to literally move through those things.
Yeah.
And that things will manifest in your body that you will not even be aware of or even capable of articulating. They'll manifest, and they will also be, expunged in a very physical way.
Well, okay, we're towards the end, and I'm still very curious about this. When you were a kid, were you able to articulate things? Were your parents, did they articulate things? Were they verbal? Did they express stuff? Or was it all kind of just the things you're talking about, especially with like grief and movement and stuff like this, is all stuff that I've started to recognize only as an adult. I've started to recognize, and not in a kind of new agey way, but like I think about like the energy, like when I was talking about, being in a band or whatever, right?
Yeah.
There's a certain energy to that, or being on stage with someone, whether it's comedy or anything else. Like there's a certain energy that I was just not recognizing before, or like it was in my body and I wasn't conscious of it, or I was ignoring it or whatever, right? However, I don't know the answer about what was actually going on at the time. And I'm curious if you were a very kind of talking about things person when you were younger and you didn't recognize the energy, and it's something that has unfolded before you as you become an adult. If your parents are like that, or, what was it like?
I was definitely always curious to put words to things. I think that comes from my mother, and she enjoys that as well. A part of this record project that I'm releasing soon, when I came up here, my mother gave me a journal that she kept when I was an infant. And every single entry is addressed to me, which it's like pretty wild. And I, stayed up one evening and like read the whole thing aloud with Daniel, and it was like pretty wild. 'Cause she was about the same, I guess. Yeah, we were about the same age, like would have been about the same age. Actually, I have it here with me now. But, and so she was always in conversation with other works of art and stuff, and always reading and then writing about things. So I think I definitely have that tendency, and I think that comes from my mother. My dad, I think, is much less so inclined in that way, but we connect on this different level, or in different ways, and too, he was always very encouraging of me to follow that drive. to articulate with words or music or art, which is really special that my folks were supportive of that, because I think they both appreciate it, and they both, like, my folks have been involved with bars where there's live music, and they both are just very creative people as far as how they think, I think. But I can't finish a sentence. But yeah, so I feel like that was hugely important for me as a kid, and I hope I've only sort of like grown to recognize those energies more and more, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think I've always been inclined in that way, whether or not I was totally aware of it or not.
Do they run a bar or own a bar or something?
Yeah. A handful, well, two now, but in Austin. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not even just that you grew up like playing music, and it's that it was a family business too.
Well, it wasn't until I was playing in bars, and then it became a thing. So it was sort of like, yeah, my folks had a brewery. They were involved in the beer business. Well, they were involved in the beer business. They did distribution and stuff, and then had a brewery, and then it was a little ahead of its time as far as like microbreweries go. And so that didn't quite pan out. But yeah, when I was a teenager and started getting these gigs, and they were incredibly supportive and would come out and see me play, ended up getting back into the beer business, but more on the, on the bar side of things. So that became very much more a part of our lives, Mm-hmm.
Okay, final question then. Do you remember the point where you made an actual decision, like you wanted to be making music?
Yeah, I do. Well, I remember when it was like, I made it like publicly, sort of. I'd always supported myself doing other jobs. But since I was a teenager, I was also always playing gigs. It was less frequent, obviously, when I was underage, and then when I was sort of away at school for a minute. But then playing gigs regularly, coming back to Austin after being in school, which didn't last very long. But yeah, I do remember I think I had a residency, and I remember announcing from the stage very proudly that I had quit my job and I was not going back. And I mean, I've taught horseback riding lessons. I've worked in doing these things, but I was specifically sort of like, it was I was waiting tables. And I was done doing that. I was not any good at it either. So it's for the best for everyone. But yeah, I do remember that. And I honestly couldn't tell you what year it was, but I was in Austin, and I went on stage whatever night it was that I had this weekly gig, and I told the crowd, and I was very, very proud of myself. But I mean, I still remember it. So yeah, I mean, and I haven't taken a job like that since. I mean, I've done different art things on the side and like sold things at here and there more recently, like at markets, or picked up this kind of doing other work, but not anything that was like, this is my job.
What was it? Was it just that you were like fed up with waiting tables? Was it that you had gotten to a place where you had confidence that you could do this? Like, what was it?
I don't know. I'm not sure that maybe I thought about it like that. Maybe I just realized like I was holding myself back from both things. Like I think I felt I felt very uncomfortable being in the job I was working, because there were people who were really committed around me, and I was not good at what I was doing, and I didn't care about it. And I hated being in that position. I hated doing something that I felt like I was letting people down doing. You know what I mean? I was not ever going to be as good as them. And I was like still working hard. I mean, I was doing my best, but I was not passionate about it. And I was passionate about this thing, and I was doing it all the time that I could. At some point, I guess that I was able to likely also afford to, I was making money enough to be able to pay rent, that I could leave my job at Maudie's. And I also was like, you'll be so glad when I'm gone, because I'm so sorry that I spill the queso. I was just really not, I still have nightmares, the service industry nightmares of like having to go across town to fill out the order, and then, whatever.
Did you have to make tableside guac? Was that part of it too?
I didn't actually, not at Maudie's, no, but now I make it at home.
Sure.
But that was a moment for me for sure, when it was like, I'm making this decision. And now, honestly, I remember that being very profound, and it like put me on this trajectory, and I've been doing that ever since. I guess I was already on the trajectory, and now I'm like, I just kind of find like I've recently sort of made, like, we're not close, but like friends with somebody who's working a farm, and I'm just like, that is art. Holy cow. That's so beautiful. It's so creative. You are, I mean, you have to imagine, you have to use your creativity to imagine a better way forward, especially right now. Or I guess always, ever, but it feels especially apparent right now. And I see that, and I'm totally moved by it and inspired by things growing out of the ground. And so, yeah, I mean, I say that moment was profound for me, but I don't say it in a way that's like disparaging of the service industry. Like,
no, you didn't.
I was so bad at my job, but there were people who were so good at it. And I guess all that to say, I think about jobs differently now, but
Carson
or work.
Carson, thank you for joining me today. What a joy.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yeah,
of course. The new album is so good.
Oh, thank you.
And we'll see you next time. Bye. Bye, oh, 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 bye.